Hi, Alex here from Rebeloper.com and welcome to another great episode of Firebase Authentication. In the last episode, I have added Firebase to our project via CocoaPods. Now we are going to build out the UI, and just as a reminder of what we are going to build, let me just go ahead and take a look at my test project, and here it is. And here we have our TabBar controller because we are going to build out a real case example, a real world app, and that is usually a TabBar controller. Okay, here we have our user profile and our home. And of course, if our user is not signed up or signed in or logged in, whatever you want to call it, we are going to present the user with our login sign up screen. Okay, so we are going to build out this login, this main TabBar controller and our login view controller today. Okay, let me just stop this and minimize it. And first of all, let me just get rid of our main storyboard. And I don't want to go into detail why I really don't like to use storyboards. Go ahead and check out my other videos on the topic on the channel. So this is how we remove our main.storyboard. And now in our app delegate, let us just add our view controller to the window. So what we need to do here is, first of all, type in window equals UI window. So we instantiate it, and let's make it key and visible. So window, make key and visible. Now we need to add a view controller to our Windows root view controller, and that is pretty simple because we are going to create a view controller here, and we will just use for this example our basic default view controller that Xcode created us, and type in window root view controller equals VC. Pretty straightforward. And now we have totally removed our main.storyboard. And let's just go into our view controller, and inside our view did load, let's add a background color to our view so we may see it that it actually did load our view controller. So view.background color equals .red. Okay, and now let's just select our iPhone X simulator here, and let's build and see if we actually do get a red background. I will just take this like so. Okay, let's wait for it. In the meantime, I will just close this. Okay, here we have our red view controller. Not a big deal, but you have got rid of that nasty main.storyboard. Okay, what is up next? Well, I want to have a main TabBar controller. So for that, we are going to create a new file here. So right click on it and let's create a new file, a Swift file, and let's click on the next. And I will simply call it. Let's hit on create, and here we are inside our main TabBar controller. Let's import UIKit because we want to create a class named, and I will just copy this out, main TabBar controller, capital M there, and it will be a UI TabBar controller. And of course our view did load function here, super dot view did load, and let's change our background color here. So let's select our view first. So view dot background color equals dot, let's say purple. Okay, this is a pretty good way to check if we are loading in our controllers. So in order to actually do this, let's go back to our app delegate and change our view controller to main TabBar controller, and I will just build here command B to have this auto completion. So main TabBar controller. Okay, and let us just build and run again by hitting that play button or with command R if you wish. And here we have our TabBar controller. But what we need to do is add a few tabs into our TabBar controller. So let's go back into our main TabBar controller and create a function here called, because we are going to add two view controllers, one for the home and one for the user profile page. And let's just copy this out. I will just create a file private so it will not mess up with other codes in other files. Well, not files, classes. File private, func, and paste that in there, and there we have it. Here we can add our view controllers. First of all, how to add our view controllers? Well, there is something called on the UI TabBar controller called view controllers, and it needs an array of view controllers. For now, I will just leave it empty because now we are going to create our view controllers. So go ahead again, right click, select a new file, Swift file, and I will just call this. Okay, let's create it and let's import UIKit. Pretty straightforward. I will create a class, home controller, and it will be of type UI view controller. A simple UI view controller will do. And now I will add here our view did load and super dot view did load, and well, maybe let's change the background color. So view dot background color equals to, let's say, dot blue. Pretty good stuff. Now let's create our user profile controller just the same way. New file, Swift file. Let's create this. Okay, and I will just simply copy and paste this, not to waste any more time because it's pretty similar. Let's change our class name to user profile controller, and let's change the background color to yellow, for example. Okay, now back to our main TabBar controller. We need to construct these two view controllers. So before we actually add them into our view controller. So pretty basic stuff. Okay, and now let's add this home controller here, and finally let's add our let, and it will be an instantiation of user. Let us just build here so we may get the completion, user profile controller. Okay, and now let's just copy this out and paste it in here. And now we should get two view controllers inside our TabBar. But let us just build and run and see how this looks, and maybe just test it that it has succeeded, and indeed it has. Okay, here we have our blue background, that is our home controller, and if we just tap here, it doesn't really have an icon just yet, but we have switched to our user profile controller, which has a yellow background. Pretty good stuff. Okay, next up we need to add some icons. So what I have done is that I have prepared these TabBar icons. So let's go to our assets and drag in here from our resources these two files. Okay, here we have our main tab bar item home and main tab bar item profile, and I have the 3x resolutions here, and as you can see they are both white, and that is for a reason, and I will show you just later on. So let's go back to our main tab bar controller and let's construct our icon here in the home for the home controller. So before we do that, we need to add a navigation controller to our home controller and user profile controller. So for that we are going to create a new let here, and that is navigation controller, and I will add as a root view controller our home controller. I hope this is straightforward, and I will just add here in the view controllers array home navigation controller, and let's do the same for our user profile controller now. So let, and again UI and navigation controller with a root view controller of our user profile controller, and again let's replace this plain or UI view controller with our navigation controller. And now if we try to build and run, you will see a navigation controller bar right at the top of our scene. There you have it, and if we just switch between these two controllers, it's the same. Pretty good stuff till now. So let us just add our icons now. So home and navigation controller, and that is tab bar item and dot, and we will select image, and that is our home. I believe it's not called home. Let me just double check. Main tab bar item home. So I will start with main tab bar item home, and let's just add it as is for now. We will change that later on, and let's go here and type in user profile and navigation controller tab bar item dot image equals, and again main tab bar item, there we go, profile image. Okay, let's build and run again and see what that looks like. There you go, pretty good stuff. If we just tap on each and one of them, you may see that we have a bluish when the selected and a grayish color added to the icons when it is unselected. But what I want to do here is, well, change these default colors to other ones, and for that, first of all, let us just type in here with rendering mode. So with rendering mode and dot always template, because we want to use this white icon PNG image as a template, because we are going to tint this with a certain color. And again with rendering mode and dot always template. And now let's add our unselected image the same, and of course add our icons as the same. So home and navigation controller tab bar item dot and selected image. I have misunderstood. We are adding our selected image now, and the image otherwise is the unselected one. So selected image, and again main tab bar item home with rendering mode dot always original. Okay, and let's do the same for our user profile. User profile and navigation controller tab bar item dot selected image equals main tab bar item profile with a rendering mode and dot always template. Okay, next up is to add colors to these template images. So now we want to add a color to our selected images and our unselected image. For that, we are going to create a service file. So let's create a new file here. Let it be of Swift. Let's click on next and name it service. Okay, let's create it. And let me just import here UI. Well, better yet, yeah, UI kit first, and then let's import LBTA components, because we are going to use LBTA components, one of its convenience methods, on our UI color extension. So what we want to do here is add a class, and that is service, and it will not have any superclass, and we are going to create 3 colors. So let me just go back here inside my test project. Let me just minimize this, and inside our service I have created 3 colors: a base color, a dark base color, and an unselected item color. And as you can see, we have this UI color extension from LBTA components with a red, green, and blue value, and these are, well, Firebase like colors. So I will just copy these out and add them to our service class. Okay, let's build and see if everything compiles. Okay, now let's go back to our main TabBar controller and change our images color, well, the TabBar items color. First up, let's change our TabBar dot and let's say unselected image tint color, and that will be, I will leave, let me, well, the unselected one is the gray one. So let's type in here service dot unselected item color, and now let's set the TabBar's tint color. So I believe image tint color, no, tint color, yes, that is it, and service dot, and I will choose the base color, or rather yet the dark base color. Okay, let's build and run again and see that in effect. And it looks we have this white here, and if we tap on there, yeah, I found this. You need to set always template, so always template. Let's build and run again and see that in action. Okay, there we go. Good stuff. And let me just change this home controller's background, let's say to service dot, and our base color and our user profile controller's background color to white. Okay, let's build and run again. And one last thing about our main TabBar controller is that here, if you can notice, we have some space for the text of our TabBar, and we will fix that with a UI inset. And let me just copy this out and paste it in here, and I will explain that after that. Let me have some room here so you may see. So we are guardlet unwrapping all of the items, well, these 2 items, and we are looping through them, and we are setting our image insets as for the top of 4 and the bottom of a -4. This will lower both of the TabBar items a little bit to the center of our TabBar. So let's see how that works. And pretty good. You should see the difference when you, let's say, you test this on not an iPhone X simulator, other types of simulators. Okay, one last thing, in our home controller, let's set our titles. So let's see, navigation item dot title equals home, and in our user profile controller, navigation item dot title equals user profile. Okay, and that should take care of it. Now we have our TabBar controller all set up. Here we have our home and our user profile. Pretty good stuff. Now we need to add, let's say, a sign up view controller. And for that, let's just create that view controller first. So right click on your group and let's select a new file, Swift file, and next, and let's name this sign up controller. Okay, let's create this and let's import UIKit here, and let's create our class sign up controller, and it will be a simple UI view controller, and let our view did load here, super view did load, and let's say add our views background color, let's say to red, so we may see that it is actually red. Okay, now what we need to do is when we load our main TabBar controller, and here we have our view did load, we need to check for logged in user. So let's create a new function here. So let's say, okay, and I will just make this again a file private function. So now we need to call upon Firebase, but before we even write a single line of code into our check logged in user status function, we need to configure Firebase. And if you recall, in the previous video, we started a step-by-step process inside the Google Firebase dashboard, and it is already gone by now on my side, but you should be able to continue, and you will see that you need to configure Firebase, and we will do that just now. So let's go to app delegate and let's simply import Firebase, and now in the application did finish launching with options, simply type in firebase app.configure, and we are configured. Now back to our main TabBar controller. Let's import here a Firebase auth, because we need to check on the authentication of our users. So inside our check logged in user status, let's type in auth dot and current user. So if this is nil, and I will put here an if, then we need to present the sign up controller. So this is fetched on the background, so we need to come back to our main thread, so dispatch, and we are going to construct here our sign up controller, if I could type that correctly, and it will be our sign up controller, and we will add this to our navigation controller. So let equals our UI navigation controller with our root view controller of sign up controller. And now we need to push our sign up navigation controller. So self.present and view controller will be our sign up navigation controller animated. For now we just choose true, so you may see what is actually happening, and completion should be a nil. And after that, let us just return. Okay, and let's build and run. We return because we don't want to set up our view controllers once they are once we are not logged in. As you can see here, we have our red sign up controller inside a navigation controller. And let me just build and run again, and you will see that it kind of pops up. And of course, we don't want that. And you just saw that on the background, the home controller, I believe. So what we need is set animated to false. And let me just add here our navigation title. So navigation item dot title equals sign up, and let me just change this red to white because it's such a horrible color here. Okay, and let me just go back in the files. And here we have it, sign up, because we are not signed up. And that is it for this video. We have added our logic for checking if a user is or is not logged in, and if it isn't, then we are presenting our sign up controller. So that is it for this video. In the next one, we are going to sign up anonymously, and we are going to take it from here. So make sure to recap and take a look at the code, because things are going to get a little bit more interesting in the next one when we sign up as an anonymous user. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and of course subscribe and hit that notification bell. And as always, I will see you in the next one.